Jehovah Sparky in the dark speech low of a woman in a field she could not let go. She had planted by her own hand, row by row, and loved every green thing she had come to know. Some were weeds, some were tares in disguise, some were thorns she had praised all her life. Wild grapes hung where she called it good, and her heart was wrapped in that field like wood. Burn the field, though it breaketh me. Burn the roots I cannot see. If it all must fall to the ground, let Jehovah's plans and now be found. I am weeping while the old things yield, but there is mercy in the burning field. Then the messenger stood and said with flame, the Lord commandeth thee, burn it in his name. She said, must I lose all I have known? Can he not spare what I have grown? But the word came back deep and clear. The roots are one, they are tangled here. What thou callest weed is bound with lies, and the wild fruit is bitter in the Lord's eyes. Burn the field, though it breaketh me. Burn the roots I cannot see. If it all must fall to the ground, let Jehovah's pledge and now be found. I am weeping while the old things yield, but there is a mercy in the burning field. She built a house beside that land, with memory in every grain of sand. Her labor, her sorrow, her former days, all stitched in the road she made. But a new day waits where the fire starts, at the east side of the broken heart. And you cannot hold what Jehovah removes if you would receive what his spirit proves. So she took the torch with trembling hands and set the flame to a treasured lead. Smoke rose high like a cry to heaven, and the fire spoke loud where her past had been. She stood and watched and did not run, though tears fell down in the heat and smoke. And when the ashes lay bare and still, green life rose up by Jehovah's will. Burn the field, though it breaketh me. Burn the roots I cannot see. If it all must fall to the ground, let Jehovah's pension now be found. I am weeping while the old things yield, but there is mercy in the burning field. Love was hidden under sorrow, joy was buried under pain, peace lay waiting in the ashes, till Jehovah set the flame. What I called my life was choking, but he planted deep and real. Now I know I was not ruined, I was freed in the burning field.
Heavenly Father, in your hope, Father, I come before thee with open hands. Not because I have mastered anything, but because I am still learning how to be whole. I'm still learning how to be truthful inward, not only outward. And Father, we as a whole is still learning how to walk straight when our emotion pulls us aside, when the world offers a path. I pray to be patient with us. Some are among us want to do right but don't know how. Some has been taught by broken example, by their understanding was shaped by what they saw, not by what was pure. Some was hungry for instructions and was given noise. Some was looking for standards and was shown fragments. And some, Father, they come with wounds, quiet wounds, and wounds of disappointment, wounds of confusion, wounds of being led poorly. I ask to heal those wounds through thy instructions and let this lesson today, Father, be unto us not as a weapon to strike others, but as a light to search ourselves. Let it be a mirror, not a stone. Let it correct without cruelty. Let it warn without hardening. Let it teach without shimmering the weak. For thy ways are strong, but thy hand are also gentle. And I pray to place tenderness in the mouths, Father, of me. That as I go forward with this teaching, and let those, Father, as I speak, not to stand above thy people, but to be among as one of them, who is in need of thy mercy. Keep the pride far from this lesson. Keep the performance far from the teaching. Keep vanity from the assembly. For when pride enters the house, truth leaves the room. I ask, Father, to awaken this congregation with a holy hunger, not with entertainment, not with novelty, but with understanding that cleanses. For they are souls who are starving, not for lack of words, but lack of clarity. They do not need a louder voice. They need a truer measure. They don't need more opinions. They need that straight line. They don't need fragments. They need wholeness. Father, teach us the pain to divide things. Teach us a half-truth can injure like a whole lie. Teach us the hidden portions that can poison an entire vessel. Teach us the outward appearance without inward sincerity is like a well that is a painted bucket with no water below. Teach us that claiming to give all while secretly protecting self makes the soul brittle, not because thou art cruel, but because the true is weighty. False balance cannot hold weight. And yet, Father, I ask thee to correct each and every one of us with hope. For some who have withheld did so from fear, and some who gave poorly did so from ignorance. Some who failed did so because they were never shown the right way. And I pray, Father, in the ways of Jehovah, to separate rebellion from weakness. Heal the weakness through instructions. Teach us to confess. Teach us to repair. Teach us to return, Father. Teach us to become faithful witnesses, not with grand speeches, but with a constant obedience. Strengthen those who feel unworthy to learn. Some hear correction and instantly think I am rejected, but Father, let them hear thy heart. that correction is not abandonment, it is adoption. It is proof that thou art still dealing with them. It is proof that thou hast cast not them off. Let them feel thy nearness while they're being reshaped. So I pray, Father, to let this lesson fall upon these people. Rain like upon dry ground. Not flooding, not destroying, but soaking in, softening the hard places, waking up the seed that has slept too long. Let it produce fruit in the home, fruit in speech, fruit in secret choices, fruit in humility, and fruit in integrity. And I pray, Father, to give each and every one of us the courage to be whole, courage to stop pretending, courage to stop hiding, and courage to stop being inward parts into the light. Courage to be honest before thee, even when we fear, we will see. When we do see, Father, do not let us stay there. Wash us, rebuild us, strengthen us, teach us how to walk again. And I ask, Father, to let this teaching not enter into the ears, but let it travel into the heart. From the heart to the hand, and from the hand to the feet, and from the feet into the daily obedience. And let, Father, this congregation be strengthened, not bruised by truth. Let it be in them, Father. Let it not condemn, but correct and to conform. But Father, we need thee to make us sincere, and we need thee to make us clean. We need thee to make us faithful. And Father, as I go forward, let this lesson bless the people, heal the broken, feed the hungry, restore the witnesses, and let thy ways become plain before each and every one that is here. And Father, I pray this. I pray this prayer in the name of Jehovah, and Jehovah I will always pray in. Amen. And shalom, everyone, shalom. I want to welcome everyone to the house of the Lost Sheep of Israel. I'm the pastor here with the Lost Sheep of Israel and also with King James Bible University. And as we preparing to go into the house of Jehovah, I want to make sure that each and every one of us, we prepare ourselves on what thus said the Lord. And our key is for all them that is preparing themselves to make their way to the Passover. We have come to this crossroads of surrender. Something that we shouldn't have touched on as of this moment, but many people wanted to see what these jars and these labels were. So we had to open up the lids. So what we're going to do, we're going to get ready to get that started. But before we do, we just want to make sure that the Passover that is coming up is already sold out. So I appreciate each and every one that will be attending, because we have a lot of beautiful things going to be happening there. Also, with that, is that we have teachings where we're going to have the elders, might be some deacons come up and do this on there. And also, we will be having some promotions coming up. Those promotions mean, it's not promotions as in man sees it, but it's promotions to where God wants to start trying you. So we have those going to be going on there also. So just make sure that each and every one their heart is prepared and for what's going to be going on, because it's very serious on what's happening. And we're going to see this in this lesson. I had to stretch this one out in 2, hopefully not 3, but most likely 2, to show you the seriousness on what's going on and what's happening and what we need to do. So as we go through this, we're going to be asking people after this lesson to come into Zoom to where you can get the updates on what's going to be happening and the things that we need to do. But I want to make sure one thing. Did everybody, when they read the description, I want to make sure that each and every person, they read it to understand it. To make sure that we looking forward to what we need to be doing, because this is going to help us out a greater deal. So as we go through this, we're going to make sure that we're going to keep focusing on what we need to be doing here today. So as we do this, we're going to look at something. We want to make sure we understand what need to happen. Because even with myself, I am burdened with the Spirit and many troubled within my inward parts. So I lifted up an inquiry to Jehovah concerning the condition of this people that he has me to teach in these latter days that I look at. For in their grief that lies, it's not upon the surface only, but it sinks down into the secret chambers of discernment. When men remembers the generation fluent in the language of devotion and yet barren and hidden within your hearts. So I want to make sure we understand what we need to do. Many of us have learned the sound of worship. Many of us have learned the sound of worship, but we have not entered into the fear of Jehovah. To get more into it, and the same thing is, we had 2 lessons this morning, dead on, as with all this past week. But we, as a whole, we have perfected the motion of confession, but we have not yielded the substance of obedience. See, our mouths are exercised in holy speech, but our lips are adorned in garments of reverence. But these assemblies are ordered, and their sayings in most people are polished. Testimonies are rehearsed. Yet Jehovah, who tries the ruins and searches the heart, it's not deceived by the ministry of appearances. Everybody follow me? He's not deceived by the ministry of appearances. For Jehovah is not approached by vocabulary alone, neither is he moved by ceremonies of utterance where there is no brokenness within. So we need to understand that. That we need to understand. This is why the word established was even in the prophets. And it was confirmed again even then by Jehovah. Because he said this in scripture. He said, this people draw near me with their mouths. They honor me with their lips while their hearts is far from me. This today now, we're looking at a time of wound, our time. And not as men speak falsely, But many of us have mistakenly speech of surrender, expression and conversation and nearness and language, nearness in spirit. So this is the issue. For what are mouths without the heart before Jehovah? Can anyone answer that? For what is a mouth without the heart before Jehovah? It is an incense without fire. It is as an altar without sacrifice. It's a vessel bearing the inscription of holiness while containing only wind. Lies the terror of this entire matter that we're going to be getting into. So men may persuade his neighbor in language, but we look at this and soothes himself with the echo of his own confession, yet he's always going to remain the great distance from Jehovah because the inner man has not bowed down to him. The heart that each and every one of us have to understand is this. The heart is the storehouse. The mouth is the gate. So for that reason, the gate is richly decorated, but the storehouses within it is empty. But the passerbys oppress, yet heavenly is not. Jehovah do not enter a man by the report of his lips. He tries whether truth dwells within the inward parts. So as I'm speaking and I'm talking to you about this, why we got to get very serious about what's happening. Many of us this hour has built our entire spiritual life upon the architect of public language. They know when to say, praise Jehovah. They know when to say this. They know when to weep. They know when to lift their hands. They know when to declarate themselves surrendered. But the Father looks beyond that performance. See, where is your heart? Is what he's looking for. Where is your fear? Where is your repentance? Where is your obedience when man is not watching? This is what he does. So this is the nakedness of this generation that I stand before. Not as men speechless towards Jehovah, but as they are eloquent without being yielded. See, they carry the labor of devotion while withholding the chamber of affliction. They speak as servants, but inwardly preserve the throne for self. And because this is their religion, they have been organized, curated, outwardly maintained, and supposed this self-full, not discerning that they had offered Jehovah the fruits of their lips, while denying him the government of their heart. So the heart was made to be the sanctuary of allegiance. It was not going to man to just feel, but to submit. See, the great corruption of the first in the tongue, but in the will. See, people are always going to think it's first the tongue, but it's the will. And when the will remains unbroken, the mouth becomes a veil. The speech then serves as a covering of rebellion. But we got to remember the religious vocabulary always become a painted sepulcher around the uncrucified inward man. So people draw near to Jehovah with sound, while fleeing him in their intention. So I want you guys to really hear me carefully as we moving into this lesson, because I just want to speak to you. Jehovah is not seeking a people skilled in approaching him verbally. I'm going to say that again. Jehovah is not seeking a people that are skilled in approaching him verbally. He seeks people who tremble at his word in his inward parts. You follow me? See, we got to understand many, many things on what is going on. In 1 second. So we want to make sure that what is happening here and what we make sure we need to do. So people who are skilled like that, they seek this hidden man. But he seeks the burnt offering of self-will. He seeks the inward surrender whereby the heart ceases to bargain, ceasing from posing, ceasing from hiding, falling down, fully open before him, saying, "Rule thou over me." Therefore, let this lecture begin not in the comfort of our outward religion, but with the judgment of our inward examination that we need. Let everyone ask not only, "What have I said to Jehovah?" I want you to say, "What have I withheld from him?" You follow me? Not sitting there, "What have I said to him?" but what have I withheld from him? Many of us are giving Jehovah his vocabulary back with love. Many of us phrases to retain pride. We may present worship as a concealed lust, and we confess surrender, yet protect the secret covenant that he made with our own flesh. See, but I'm saying to you, as we're moving forward, this is why many of us today will remain untransformed, though they're going to still remain religious. See, their mouths have learned to approach, but their hearts have never entered the conventional nearness. The true nearness unto Jehovah is not accomplished by utterance alone, but the inward yielding of this holy fear, this obedience by repentance and by complete surrender, the inner man upon the altar of the Most High. So when we open this matter that we get ready to do right now, we got to open this matter. Every listener to understand Jehovah is not reading any labels. No label. "Oh, I'm Israel." No label. "I'm a Hebrew." No labels. "I'm holy." He's not reading labels, which you done wrote on yourself. He's not holding on to none of those. We have many people have those labels, but he's going to be searching the contents within it. He's not measuring the beauty of your confession alone, but he's weighing the truth of the inward part. So in this segment that we're going to be going through, this question before the heavens, not to speak near unto Jehovah, but who will draw near in heart, in truth, in fear, and surrender? See, our mouths have gone before our hearts returned. If the lip have already overturned the obedience of repentance, and if your words have been many, but your surrender is small, bow low before Jehovah. For the way back to him is not through better performance, but through a broken spirit, contrite heart. So the soul is not longer desired to appear near, but or indeed. So as we move forward, I want you to meditate on something for each and every one of us. Each and every one of us. I'm going to pause here, but I want you to think about something. Have you organized your spiritual life so thoroughly that you have mistaken the organization for substance? I'm going to say that again. Have you organized your spiritual life, your spiritual lifestyle, so thoroughly you have mistaken the organization for substance? Have you labeled your jars so beautifully that now you've forgotten to check what was inside of them? The inspector, Jehovah, don't read labels. He opened lids. So I'm going to share this parable with you. I want you to see this parable. I want you to understand it. We're going to come back and we're going to start tearing this down. We're going to get started.
Hear now this parable, and let him that hath ears to hear what the Spirit saith unto the congregations. There was a certain master of great wealth and authority, who possessed a vast storehouse in the midst of a great city. And before he departed into a far country, he called together his servants, both the great and the small, and he gave unto them this commandment: I go away for a season, but I shall return as an inspector in the night. Prepare for me the vessels of my storehouse, fill them with the fruits of the Spirit, that when I return, I may not find my house empty, for none shall appear before me empty. And he departed, and the servants went to work, and they were diligent in their labor, but their diligence was in the wrong thing, for they gathered many jars of every size and shape, and they set them in perfect rows upon the shelves of the storehouse, with great care and with great pride. And they took up their finest pens, and they crafted beautiful labels in their own handwriting upon one jar. They wrote generosity upon another. They wrote faithfulness upon another, obedience upon another, holiness upon another, purity. And upon many more they wrote the names of all the fruits of the Spirit. But the largest jar of all, a jar of pure alabaster, set in the center of the highest shelf, where all who entered the storehouse could see it, they labeled with one word above all words: surrender. And the visitors came to the storehouse, and they marveled at the beauty of the arrangement, and they praised the servants for their diligence, and the servants received the praise, and they were satisfied. But the servants had deceived themselves, for they believed that the label and the contents were the self-same thing. They had forgotten that a jar is known not by its label, but by what is poured out of it. And there is a kind of blindness that cometh not from darkness, but from arrangement, when a man hath organized his spiritual life so completely, and labeled its components so thoroughly, and visited its shelves so regularly, that he mistakes the organization for the substance, and the visitation for the filling. And this is the great deception of the hill of profession, that the naming of a thing is taken for the possession of a thing, and the writing upon the jar is mistaken for the substance within the jar. And so, into the jar labeled faithfulness, they poured the sand of adultery and the ashes of fornication. For in the year 2026, the servant who called himself faithful would rise from the bed of his wife and send secret messages to another. He would sit in the congregation on the Sabbath and lift his hands, and his jar of faithfulness would rattle with the stones of his transgression. And into the jar labeled purity, they poured the dark water of lasciviousness and uncleanness. For the servant who called herself pure would watch the filth of the word upon her screen in the night, and in the morning she would arise and write purity upon her jar in fresh ink. And into the jar labeled obedience, they placed the ashes of selectivity, obeying the commandments that cost them nothing, and setting aside the statutes that required sacrifice. The man who kept the Sabbath outwardly, but violated it in his heart by planning his next week's transactions while the law was being read. The woman who tithed her increase, but withheld the vehement hatred of her own iniquity that Jehovah required of her. And into the jar labeled generosity, they poured the calculation of men, giving only when it was seen, giving only what could be recovered, calling their convenience a gift and their surplus a sacrifice. And into the jar labeled humility, they poured the oil of self-promotion, the man who fasted and then announced the fast, the woman who served in the assembly and then ensured everyone knew she served, the elder who gave counsel and then reminded the council of the gift they received. This is humility turned inside out. used as a garment of distinction rather than a posture of lowliness. The Pharisee who stood and prayed with himself, God, I thank thee that I am not as other men are. And into the jar labeled patience, they poured the vinegar of resentment. The spouse who said, I forgive you, but brought up the offense in the next argument. The friend who endured a wrong but stored it as ammunition. The silence that looked like patience but was actually a calculation of grievances. The true long-suffering thinketh no evil. It keepeth no accounts. And into the jar labeled wisdom, they poured the wormwood of human opinion. The wisdom from beneath that is earthly, sensual, devilish, as the Apostle James declareth. The man who substituted his own understanding for the counsel of Jehovah. And Isaiah crieth out, Woe unto them that are wise in their own eyes and prudent in their own sight. But the great jar of surrender, the largest jar, set in the center of the highest shelf, remained entirely empty. For to fill it, a man must pour himself into it. He must pour his will, his desires, his ambitions, his body, and his soul. And this the servants were unwilling to do. And they said in their hearts, The master delayeth his coming. No man openeth the lids to see what is inside. The label is sufficient. The arrangement is beautiful. The visitors are satisfied. And they continued in this manner for many years, adding more jars and more labels, and the storehouse grew full of the appearance of righteousness. But there was no righteousness in the storehouse. There was only the smell of sand and ashes, and the stench of things long dead. Then, suddenly, in the hour that they expected not, the master returned. He did not come as a visitor who marveled at the arrangements. He came as the inspector. He did not look upon the beauty of the shelves, nor did he read the handwriting of the servants. He walked in silence through the rows of jars, and his eyes were as a flame of fire. And he came to the center of the room, and he stood before the great jar of surrender, which was the largest jar set upon the highest shelf. And he reached up, and he took the jar down, and he opened the lid, and the jar was empty, and the sound of its emptiness was louder than any trumpet. Then the master turned to the servants, and his countenance was terrible. And he said, Did I not command you by the mouth of Moses, saying, None shall appear before me empty? Did I not command you to fill the vessels of my house with the fruits of the Spirit? And the servants were silent, for they had no answer. And the master moved to the jar labeled faithfulness, and he opened the lid, and the stench of adultery and fornication filled the room. And the master said, I have found the works of the flesh in the vessel of honor. There is no need to open more jars. For it is written in the law of the Spirit, that if a man be found with the works of the flesh, he shall not inherit the kingdom of God. And the Apostle Paul hath declared, Now the works of the flesh are manifest, which are these: adultery, fornication, uncleanness, lasciviousness, idolatry, witchcraft, hatred, variance, emulations, wrath, strife, seditions, heresies, envyings, murders, drunkenness, revellings, and such like, of the which I tell you before, as I have also told you in time past, that they which do such things shall not inherit the kingdom of God. And the judgment was set, and the books were opened. For Daniel saw it in the night vision, saying, A fiery stream issued and came forth from before him. Thousands ministered unto him, and 10,000 times 10,000 stood before him. The judgment was set, and the books were opened. And John saw it on the Isle of Patmos, saying, And I saw the dead, small and great, stand before God. And the books were opened. And another book was opened, which is the book of life. And the dead were judged out of those things which were written in the books according to their works. And whosoever was not found filled with the Spirit, but was found with a jar of iniquity, was cast into the lake of fire. And whosoever was not found written in the book of life was cast into the lake of fire. And the great jar of surrender, which had been empty, was the only jar that the master sought to fill, for it alone was the book of life, the one vessel that Jehovah himself would fill with his own spirit. And the servants who had kept their jars empty of the world and full of surrender were brought before the master. And he said unto them, Well done, thou good and faithful servant. Thou hast been faithful over a few things. I will make thee ruler over many things. Enter thou into the joy of thy Lord. But the servants who had filled their jars with the works of the flesh and labeled them with the fruits of the Spirit were cast out, and their jars were shattered, and the pieces thereof were scattered to the wind. For the Lord hath said, He that overcometh shall inherit all things, and I will be his God, and he shall be my son. But the fearful and unbelieving and the abominable and murderers and whoremongers and sorcerers and idolaters and all liars shall have their part in the lake which burneth with fire and brimstone, which is the second death. And I, Michael, saw these things in my meditation, and I trembled, for I said, Who among us hath not written a false label? Who among us hath not kept the great jar of surrender empty, while filling the other jars with the things of the world? And the Spirit answered me, saying, For in truth there is no man among them that be born, but he hath dealt wickedly, and among the faithful there is none, which hath not done amiss. Therefore, let every man examine his own storehouse before the master returneth. Let him open his own lids before the inspector openeth them. For it is better to pour out the sand of your transgression before the altar of Jehovah, than to have it poured out before the throne of judgment. Now mark this well. When the inspector openeth the lids, he shall find the spiritual adultery and fornication of those who have gone into the buildings called church houses and worship men, and not Jehovah. For the prophet Ezekiel saw this abomination, when the Spirit brought him to the door of the inner gate, and he beheld the women weeping for Tammuz, and the men with their backs toward the temple of Jehovah, worshipping the sun toward the east. In 2026, the same spiritual fornication is committed in every building that calleth itself a house of God, or teacheth the doctrines and commandments of men, making the people look to a man upon a stage rather than to Jehovah upon his throne. For Isaiah crieth out, Cursed be the man that trusteth in man, and maketh flesh his arm, and whose heart departeth from the Lord. Nay, Jeremiah crieth it, Thus saith the Lord, Cursed be the man that trusteth in man, and maketh flesh his arm, and whose heart departeth from the Lord. The very act of entering a building to sit at the feet of a man who claimeth authority that belongeth only to Jehovah. This is the adultery in the jar labeled faithfulness. This is the first parable. Let him that hath understanding understand.
So did we understand the parable? Because we're going to start tearing this parable down. So the same thing with this, I'm going to speak to each and every one of you guys on this parable here that I have shown you. So I speak to them who know the actual laws of God. So this first parable, it contains the entire legal framework of Jehovah's judgment upon the storehouses of all men. So this parable, it begins not with servants, nor with jars, nor with labels, but with Jehovah himself, who possessed the vast storehouse and in the midst of this great city. So the storehouse also means stewardship. We got to know what that means. It means stewardship, dwelling places, the vessels. So even when you look at this and we start getting the understanding on what's going on, the storehouse in the midst of the city, the heart of man. So even if you do this, I'm not going to be running back and forth through the spiritual dictionary, but I'm going to give you the pages. But if you have the spiritual dictionary, you go to page Well, 115 and 86, and you can also pair that with 1536. Because this is going to declare the functions, the will, the life, the desire, the reason, and transformation. So when this is set in the midst of the kingdom of Jehovah is within you. So when we look at this, we also see something. I want to show you this. And in Luke 17:21, it tells you right here. It says, neither shall they say, lo here, lo there, for behold, the kingdom of God is within you. The kingdom of God is within you. And I want to introduce a certain thing, what a Lord is. Lowercase Lord. See, in that you also find on page 1552. So you can mark, you can go back, and then you can get these easier. But I have a lot of ground to cover. So I'm going to give you the page numbers where you can get to them. But then when you look at the lowercase Lord, it means a chief, a ruler, a captain, who possesses before it departs, meaning he owned the storehouse before he left. And then this keeper of servants. So when we're looking at this statue, the statue of every man was here before the parable, he can be understood. Because the storehouse, remember, the storehouse is not yours. Your heart belongs to Jehovah. He built it. He filled it with his breath, his life. He placed in the midst of his kingdom, and he left it in the keeping with one commandment. Fill them with the fruits of the Spirit. And when I return, I may not find them empty. One thing, shall not appear before me empty. Moses even recorded this. We're going to look at this in Exodus chapter 23, looking at verse 15. It says, thou shalt keep the feast of unleavened bread. Thou shalt eat unleavened bread 7 days, as comparing, I command thee in the time appointed of the month of Abib, for in it cometh down from Egypt, and none shall appear before me empty. And he says this again in Deuteronomy 16:16, right here. It says, 3 times a year shall all thy males appear before the Lord thy God, which they don't do already, in the place which I shall choose. In the feast of unleavened bread, in the feast of weeks, in the feast of tabernacles, they shall not appear before me, before the Lord, the Spirit of God, empty. But we know that's not happening either. This is why a lot of people is here just show. That's why a lot of brothers are here. Just show. See, I want you to hear me when I say this. See, because this is not a commandment even of attendance. I'm being very direct with you. These feasts are not commandments of attendance. Too many of our people read these statutes through Jehovah and thinking they just show up 3 times a year. No. He said, appear before me not empty. Not empty. Which means you must bring something because something was first given to you. See, the 3 feasts, the seasons of Jehovah's, the spiritual husbandry. We can find this in same thing, husbandry. You'll find it in your spiritual dictionary in 1539. See, so the husband, the householder, see the heart of his people, and we got to see what the seed. The seed means the word, the doctrine, the offspring, the increase. But he's working the soil of your hearts, and your soil of your hearts is on the schedule. So if you understand the schedule, then you understand why he said not empty. You follow me? See, the Feast of Unleavened Bread, let's look at some of this. The Feast of Unleavened Bread is a season of planning. It's a season of planning. The day right before crossing over Passover, that's coming up. planting after that, then it comes the spring of the year, and then the ground is broken, the unleavened bread. So which in the spiritual dictionary, mark it, 1550. See, it means influence, the corruption, transforming, the sin, doctrine, but it's purged from the house. So when we're looking at this, Jehovah has called his people into the storehouse at this feast to purge the old doctrine, the old corruption, the old influence of the world from the vessel, and he plant fresh seeds, his word that is cleansed the soil and the heart. That's what he had done. So Jehovah declared this parable. Actually, I want to show it to you. Actually, I'll pull it here. We'll look at this in Luke chapter 8 and 11. And he said, now the parable is this. The seed is the word of God. Interesting, ain't it? So the word of Jehovah plants in this feast of unleavened bread is the doctrine of purification. After the crossing over from Passover is the removal of every particle of leaven, every corrupted teaching, every worldly influence, every carnal doctrine, so the vessel is clean enough to receive new seed. This is why so many people misunderstands this. See, the man who comes to the Passover and leads into the Feast of Unleavened Bread come not empty of sin, but to empty of self. Not to empty of sin, but to empty of self, ready to receive the planting for Jehovah's hand. But Jehovah's planted seed, his word, his doctrine, his commandment in this broken ground, purged heart. And he said, go now into the field, for I have planted in thee what the people need. This is just a side note. This is the reason why I have a problem with brothers. See, brothers that don't teach, even the ones that's coming, they're going to have a problem with me. They're going to have a problem with me. And I'm going to tell you why. Because that's what he looks for. See, they're going to try to come up, hey, how you doing? No, it ain't going to be cool. You better come with why you actually don't teach. See, when you look at this, you are not sitting in the congregation for entertainment, but you are being seated. You follow me? You're being seated. You're being planted with doctrine that is not for you alone, but it's for the people in the field where Jehovah is about to send you. You guys follow me? I know y'all understand me. I know you clearly get me. See, the Feast of Weeks, the first fruits, the Feast of Weeks, the first fruit is the season of watering and growth. See, and it comes in 50 days after the planting and then the heat of the summer. And when this seed, it was planted, have broken through the soil and the stalk stands in the field between the sun and the rain, Jehovah sends his people out of the storehouse into the field. The field, you'll find it right there on page 1526, because it means the field means the vineyard, his land, his pasture, his territory. See, in the seed that he planted in us, first grows, now grows under the water of the Spirit and lives with the people that he serves. So this is the season of first fruits. So the law commanded the first fruit, the harvest, to be brought forth to him. And you'll see the same thing in 23:16. Watch this. Watch what he says. We're going to look at 23:16. It says it right here. I'm going to highlight it right there where you can see it. It says, in the feast of harvest, the first fruits of the labors, which thou hast sown in the field, and thou the feast of ingathering, which is the end of the year, and thou hast gathered in thy labor out of the field. Makes all the sense in the world. So when we're looking at this in the first fruit, they are not the final harvest. They are the evidence of the seed that took root in the water and received the doctrine and planted. And then you got to start removing the weeds. You got to get the weeds out the way. Because when you plant, stuff just comes up. We didn't plant the weeds, but weeds are planted. I don't know. Weeds are just there. I don't know how that works, but weeds are there. See, and the weeds are not planted in the spring. They produce this visible growth in the summer. But I want you to think about something. Then I'm going to tell you, I want you to think about this. See, the man who returns to Jehovah at the Feast of Weeks brings the first fruit of what Jehovah has planted in him, the soul that was fed by the doctrine he carried, the brother that was strengthened by the commandment he taught, the stranger was comforted by the word he spoke in the field, and Jehovah receives the first fruit. Say, that's a good seed. That is a good seed. That seed is good. That seed is good. You follow me now? When you planted that and it comes back with that, man, that's a good seed, man. That's a good seed. See, the water, as he watered it, it prospered, and he feeds it some more, and it goes back into the field, for the harvest is not yet complete, but he is inspecting the progress of his own seed of your own life. It is checking whether what he planted had took root in somebody else. That is the first fruits. And what is you bring back? Good, bad, and the ugly. The first fruit. The first fruit, that's where we got to divvy up everything. All the good, the bad, the ugly, we got to divvy it all up. You see, we have to do it. You see, people don't like to even do it. They don't even like to do it. You got to divvy up, though. The good, the bad, the ugly. I'll tell you what, real quick, you can put in the chat. You can put in the I's for yes and the N's for no. Everybody who had to divvy up. I ain't talking about the ones who didn't come. So don't put that in there if you ain't came. Don't put that in there. But if you came to our first fruits, I's for yes, N's for no. Know that you didn't want to divvy up, but you just know you didn't want to divvy up, but you divvied up. Because even that's what the no gonna say. But I's will say you didn't have no problem divvying up. Your N's is I had to divvy up, but I didn't want to divvy that up. That's what the N's stand for. So it looked like a lot of people joining, they was cool divvying up. Mine is an N. I'm gonna tell you right now, I don't like to divvy up bad stuff. And I'm just being honest with you. I got a lot of people in there, they cool with they divvying up. I don't get it, but they was all cool with it, but I wasn't cool with my divvy up. We had to divvy up, but we just divvied up. That's all I'm saying. So that's how we look at that. You know, some people, I'm looking at them, I'm just sitting there. Some people, I got more no's than, mine's a no also. See, when you divvying up the good, the bad, and the ugly, they're gonna be a no. I don't like to divvy up. I'm gonna divvy it up, but I don't want to divvy it up. But I'm gonna divvy it up. So that's what that's about. But we have to look at that on what it's all about. We have to look at it. See, the Feast of Tabernacles, is a season of ingathering of the full harvest and return the laborers to the storehouse to complete crops. So it comes at the end of the year. And in the field that's being reaped in the threshing floor, see, it's the full fruits of the entire season, the labors that gather into the barn. So when we're looking at that, we got to understand what that is. So in the barn mean the storehouse. You can find that on page 1482 of the Spiritual Dictionary. But now, because this is really where the most people miss, because Jehovah has called back. He called all the people back into the storehouse. He called all the people back into the storehouse at the feast, not to rest from their labor, but to be resown. This is how it works. I'm just telling everybody how this works and why you've seen that parable. See, the Feast of Tabernacles is then one of the Feast of Remembrance, where Jehovah said, "Thou hast brought the harvest of the last season. Now dwell with me, and I'll prepare thee for the next." So he gonna get us ready for the next one. See, this is how this works. This is the indwelling. So Jehovah opens up the next season doctrine. He gives you the new seed, the new soil. Then on top of that, what he going to do, he going to reveal the deeper understanding for the commandments and his conditions. So what he does, he equip your pastor with the deeper understanding, the sharper discernment, the fuller measure of his spirit, and so that the next feast of unleavened bread comes and the ground is broken again. Then we're going to go in and out in the field, carrying not the same seed. He carried the last season, but a stronger, deeper, more fruitful doctrine that meets the needs of the people for the new seasonal crop. You follow me? Now we got a stronger doctrine. So this is why brothers shouldn't be teaching the same first level teaching that they teach unless they don't study. That's where that proof come in at. Because if they're still teaching the same identical thing, you can go back and see that they've been teaching for a couple of years. They're showing you they have no spiritual growth. That's where that comes in. This is how you catches it. So you're not to be teaching the same lesson year in, year out, year in, year out. Same, you go and you see the same level, no growth. See, Jehovah upgrades seeds. He upgrades your seeds. See, he's giving you deeper doctrine for harder field. Because the deeper you got to go into the field, the harder the ground gets. So he got to deepen your doctrine. He's preparing you for this dwelling place to where you go back out. You carry the people what they now need. He that goes forth and weep, bearing precious seed, shall be doubtless come again and rejoice and bring sheaves unto him. Actually, that was a quote. Actually, wait a minute, that's a quote. I got to go there because that's actually a quote. But I don't want to, because I know it's not an exact quote, but it's the quote. And I don't want to take that from him. In Psalms 126:6, it says, he's go forth and weepeth, bearing precious seed, shall doubtless come again with rejoicing, bringing his sheaves with him. Yeah, but I was saying the same thing. But that's the point that I was making. And we got to see this, we got to see and understand this, so that seed, where it goes to there, and it blends you in with Isaiah. So when you look at Isaiah chapter 55, we're going to start at verse 10, and it blends us in. It says, so as the rain cometh down and the snow from heaven, and returneth not thither, but watereth the earth, and maketh it bring forth and bud, that it may give seed to the sower and bread to the eater. So shall my word go forth out of my mouth. It shall not return unto me void, but shall accomplish that which I please, and it shall prosper into the thing whereto I send it. So he put that seed in us. He put it in us. He rained, his watering, his storehouse, his planting house. You're the vessel he sends into the field to carry it. So when we look at this, and when I tell you none shall appear before me empty, he means this. Don't come before him empty. He's not commanding for you just to be attendants. Don't appear before him empty. If you're a brother that you have some brothers who made covenants with other nations in marriage. Understood. And they want to fulfill that vow. So the same thing is we let the Lord deal with that. But that's not our business. It's not my business. So my only thing is to tell you. But then they want to fulfill that, and so what God going to do, he's going to open up their lid. If he sees what's going on there, he can sit there, and God can make that determination. There. Now, my only advice to even these brothers, I would make sure that spouse is following the same God. That's just my advice to you. But that's one good thing. But if you're a brother and you married to one of his children, boy, 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 boy. Boy, boy, boy. And you just don't do no work. You just love staying in the house and eating grapes. Always want to go out there and say what you done did. Always going out, you do this, you do that, you do this, you do this. Lip service. I don't want to be nowhere close to you when you got to stand before God. See, because when you come to bring your harvest of that doctrine, that water during that season, during the last season, you come with the souls fed and the commandments are kept. The testimony will declare the sheaves grew and the fields were sent to thee. And you looking for him to dwell with him, because he's going to plant you again. See, when you coming up with those kind of seeds, he's going to plant you again. But to give seeds in this new season. So when he opened you to this deeper doctrine, this new crop, he will prepare your vessel for a deeper planting, a greater harvest that you're going to go forth again into the field, not empty, but full of the word that you have sown in us that he has done for his people. So this cycle of these 3 feasts, it goes. So when you're looking at the spiritual, when you're looking at this on page 1539, you're looking at the husbandry. How Jehovah looks upon the heart of every man and calls himself a follower of Christ. So every man who calls himself a follower of Christ, and I tell you this right up front, any man calls himself a follower of Christ and don't teach according to what Christ ordered, you're not a follower of Christ. You're religious. Y'all follow me? This is anybody, any man here, any man in the world, say they're a follower of Christ and don't teach his people, is not a follower of Christ. I don't care how we look at this, how we flip it, how we script it. You're not. You're religious. You just religious. See, the storehouse is the threshing floor, his planting house, preparing the chamber. So where the seed was given, then the harvest is received. So, but then the laborers is resown for the next season. So a man that appears before Jehovah empty, then the man went out into the field with the seed that was brought, and he brought back nothing. Brought back nothing. Nothing. He gets the word, and he's in the field, and he goes back, and he don't have nothing. Nothing. Or how we say, nothing. We don't have nothing. See, the man who received that doctrine but produces no crops, the man who was watered all season long but stood before the storehouse at the feast of the ingathering with empty hands, having consumed the seed upon his own belly rather than planting it in soil in another man's need. That is what empty means. Empty means. That is what Jehovah is looking for when the inspector opened the lid. But I want you to consider this similitude. We got to look at this. Look at this part and look at this part of the world. See, when a man purchased a house, I want you to think about it. When a man purchased a house and leaves it in the care of a tenant, you put yourself in this position, and you say to the tenant, dwell here, keep this house clean, tend the ground, pay the rent, and when I return to inspect my property, the house should remain the property of the owner regardless of how many years the tenant dwelled therein. Do you agree? He's a tenant. He's renting. He's renting the place. Do you agree or don't agree? Ayes for yes, ends for no. If he a tenant and you told him to keep the house clean, tend the ground, pay the rent, you pay the rent, not the mortgage, the rent. And when I return to inspect my property, I don't care how long I'm gone. But I want you to see this deeper similitude. What happens? Because the owner did not just leave the house, he leaves the working farm. The property have soil, and the soil have been toiled. So then the seed had purchased the place of the barn, and then the owner said to the tenant, I want you to think about something. He said to the tenant, we'll look at it something. And actually, I wrote this note down. I want to make sure I got this note right. He says, I have given thee seed. I have prepared soil. I have connected the irrigation. Plant what I have given thee. Water to according to my instructions. Harvest it in this season. And when I return, bring me the increase. For the seed was mine, the soil was mine, the water was mine, the increase belongs to me. I leave thee the whole operation. All I require is that thou bring something back. I'm going to read this note again. I'm going to read it again. When I have given thee seed, I have prepared the soil. I have connected the irrigation. I planted. I plant what I have given thee, water it according to my instructions, harvest it in its season, and when I return, bring to me the increase. For the seed was mine, the soil was mine, the water was mine, the increase belongs to me. I left thee the whole operation. I will require that thou bringest something back. So now we're going to look at the tenant. See, the tenant who paints the wall, changes the furniture, hangs new curtains, but never planted the seed, have wasted the owner's investment. He beautified the barn, but left the field barren. He arranged the storehouse to produce no harvest. And when the owner returns, he did not praise the curtains. He walked past the walls. He goes straight to the barn and opens it, straight to it. And if the barn is empty of harvest and the beauty of the house is now an indictment, just to tell you legally what an indictment is, that means you don't have a defense. It proves that the tenant had time and energy for declaration, but none for the purpose of the property. Hopefully you understand what I'm saying. So the barn is beautiful. The house is painted. The curtains are new, but the field is empty. The seeds are still in the bag. The soil have not been touched. The owner did not leave a house for a tenant to decorate. He left a farm for the tenant to work. So that's the storehouse of the parable. See, the tenant may have forgotten that he's a tenant. He didn't forget he's a tenant. Especially if the owner's absent long enough, then the neighbors have never met the owner, only knows the tenant in the name that be up on the mailbox. They don't do that today, but they have a name up on the mailbox. That's normally what they do. In the deeds of the owner's name, the mortgage is the owner's debt. The seed was the owner's purchase. So when the owner returns, he do not knock. He ain't knocking. He opens the door with his key, for he always had one for his house. It was always his farm. The harvest was always his purpose. The storehouse of the parable, Jehovah's house. See, the heart of a man is Jehovah's property. Your heart belongs to Jehovah. So the doctrine of Jehovah's seed, the field of Jehovah's territory, the harvest that it seeks in the return at the end of the season in the fruits The seed is planted in its grown soil of obedience, watered of the Spirit, brought back to the storehouse, that he prepareth thee a new seed for the next season. I want to show you something that Paul did. I just want to show you something. I want you to see something. We're going to look at this in Corinthians. 1 Corinthians 6 and 19. I want to show you something. Actually, I want to run 2. Actually, I'm going to run 3 because it's running me somewhere. So we're going to go to Deuteronomy. Go to Deuteronomy 19:21. And I also want Mark 10:45. I want these for a certain reason. So we're going to look at this in 1 Corinthians 6:19. It says, what? What? I done busted in. What? Know ye not that your body is the temple of the Holy Ghost, which is which is in you? Ye have of God's, and ye are not your own. See, when you sit there and see temple, see that temple is a consecrated place. So it says, know ye not that the consecrated place. See, that's just a deeper understanding. See, the consecrated place of the Holy Ghost, that separated spot for him, which you have of God's. But he says even more. He watched in 20. It says, for ye are bought with a price. Therefore glorify God in your body and in your spirit, which are God's. Because you bought for a price. Deuteronomy 19:21. In thy own eye, in thy own eye, your own understanding shall not pity, but life shall go for a life. You have to switch it out for the other. And that's something that we did voluntarily. Eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth, hand for a hand, foot for a foot. Even so the Son of Man come not to be ministered unto, but to minister, unto give life for a ransom for many. He didn't come to hear your sob story. What had happened was, don't come tell me that crap. Well, what had happened? No, you keep that. Well, what had happened was, no, you keep that. See, the storehouse was purchased with blood, with a lifestyle. The tenant were placed inside to steward according to the master's commandments. The masters depart, but the key remains in his hand. So the parable declares the servants went to work and they were diligent in their labor. If you go back and you see this, you'll see they were diligent in their labor, but they were diligent in the wrong thing. See, this is the sentence that should have stopped every follower of Christ in his tracks. This is what I'm going to tell you. Should have stopped every follower of Christ in their tracks. It do not say the servants was lazy, do it? It never said that. It never said they was lazy. It do not say they was rebellious, do it? It do not say they refused to work. None of those are there. It says they was diligent. They labored, they organized, they arranged, they crafted, they wrote. They built shelves, gathered jars, set them in perfect rows. And every visitor who entered the storehouse marveled at the beauty of the arrangement. But their diligence was in the wrong thing. See, this is the carnal world. This is the carnal condition. See, in the same condition that even a physician, you can even have doctors. Have you ever heard of this thing called productive cough? You have this thing where they call productive cough versus dry cough. Really, it's weird. Doctors do it. Doctors in here, they know what I'm talking about. But they got this one thing they call productive cough. It's crazy, but they do it. And then they got one called a dry cough. And I know most people done heard the doctor say, you got a dry cough. Even the parents say, you got a dry cough? Yeah, same thing. So you got a productive cough, you got a dry cough. See, the productive cough brings up what is lodged in the lungs and in the chest. It brings that. That's productive cough. Productive cough. It expels the infection. That's what it's doing. It clears the passages, serves as the healing, the body, though the sound, it sound hard. Have you ever heard people cough and they be saying, boy, you sound like a horse. You ever heard that? Many of you guys have heard that. Ooh, boy, he sound like a horse. Yeah. Same thing. That productive cough. But guess what? A dry cough. See, a dry cough had the same sound. The same motion, the same appearance of effort, but it produces absolutely nothing. It moves air. It contracts the muscles. It exhausts the body. And the man who coughs dry for weeks believes he's doing something because the effort that he's coughing is real. Because the motion is visible, because the body is working, but nothing is coming up. Nothing is being expelled. Nothing is being healed. The servant diligent that you see that they were doing with those jars was a dry cough. It was a dry cough. The motion was real. The effort was visible. The shelves were full. The labels were beautiful. The visitors were impressed, but nothing was being surrendered. Nothing was being poured out. Nothing was being offered upon the altar of Jehovah. You follow me? Let me bring this a little bit closer. Let's look at something. We'll find this in Sirach 11:11. Bring this a little bit closer. It says, there is one that laboreth, and one taketh pains, and one maketh haste, and is so much more behind. Yeah. Actually, I need to pair that. We're going to pair that with one where we're going to bring clarity to it. In 55:2, this will bring some clarity to it. It says, wherefore do ye spend money for which is not bread, and you labor for that which not satisfy not? Hearken diligent unto me, and eat ye that which is good, and let your soul delight in itself in fatness. But where do you spend money for that which is not bread? Are you doing that? You see how this is doing? See, what I want to get you to see is a couple of things. We need to run something. I want you to see a couple of things. And we're gonna see this here. Deuteronomy chapter 25, 13. But I'm gonna pair that with Leviticus 20 and 10. Then we're gonna probably run again, 20 and 10. But I want you to see this in Deuteronomy, because when we're looking at this, we want to understand what's happening. Because when we're looking at the matter of the labels, the law is contained, and it contains principles, and what you got to look at. So you got to mark it. It contains principles. And we're going to see it. Now watch, it says, thou shalt not have any bag of divers weights, a great and a small. Thou shalt not have any of thy house divers measures, a great and a small. But thou shalt have a perfect and just weight, a perfect and just measure shall thou have, that thy days may be lengthened, and in the land which the Lord God giveth thee. For all that do such things, and all that do unrighteously, are an abomination unto the Lord thy God. So it's unto the Spirit of God. So what I want to show you is based on the diver weights. So the diver weights is the bags. So these bags is the same abomination, the same diver contents in the jar. That's what he's saying, is what I'm letting you know. So those same bags is the same abominations of those diver weights in the jar. So when a man writes faithfulness upon the outside of the vessel, but then he pours adultery within it. Everybody down follow what I'm saying? He writes faithfulness on the outside of the jar, but on the inside, he pours adultery within it. He placed a great weight in a great weight and a small weight in the same bag. That's what he did. He had declared one measure to the visitor, the label, and he kept the other measure for himself, the contents. That's what he's doing. You follow me now? Jehovah declared this man an abomination, not because of the adultery alone. So don't look at it that way. Not for the adultery alone, but for the adultery in its own transgression under the statute. And we got to look at that. And it tells you right here in Leviticus, we're going to look at Leviticus 20 and 10. I'm going to take you to another one. In 20 and 10, it says, "And a man that committeth adultery with another man's wife, even he that committeth adultery with his neighbor's wife, in the adulteress should surely be put to death." But why? We got to look at this. We're going to look at this. We're going to pull all this in here. We're going to look at Exodus chapter 20 and verse 14. And it's telling you, "Thou shalt not commit adultery." And he just explained it right there. Explained it. But he'd already told you that's an abomination to him. He says, "This surely they are abomination unto the Lord." So let's look at it. The abomination is most hated to God. Proverbs, we're going to see this in Proverbs chapter 11, verse 1. It says, "A false balance is an abomination." Yeah, so you're putting labels on something, your contents is something else. That's an abomination to God, to the Lord. But the just weight is his delight. So what happens is this. Many people are going to come there with false balances. And just let people know, this is why a lot of times people will try to sit there and they try to communicate with me. And I'll be real short. Not short as in snappy, just short, I don't want to talk to you. Because the main thing is, I already know it's a false balance there. I'm not saying I'm the greatest person, I'm so good at, no, I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is, I see that already coming. So when you come to me and you already have false balances there, it's no reason for me to talk to you because I already know you're going to push me a lie. You're going to push me an abomination. So you got to consider how these similitudes of this carnal world are. Men who sell honey, same thing. Men who sell honey and they mix the honey with corn syrup. Most people don't even know they do that. The color is the same. The thickness is the same. The jar is the same. The label is the same. And they can say, put on there pure honey. They'll do the same thing. You'll never know it. But the price is the same as the pure honey. The buyer pours upon bread, which anyone do, and it eats and tastes sweetness, and then the first thing come out of people's mouths is, "This is good honey." Really? Really? Because they think it's pure syrup, and it's not. See, but it's not honey. It's corn syrup mixed with enough real honey to disguise the fraud. That's all it's doing. When a man labeled it pure, he knows it's mixed. The machine that bottled it processing, it is mixed. See, this is the issue. So only the buyer believes the label. Only the buyer. Because the buyer never tested the contents against the standard. So in the storehouse, the parable, the servant are the bottlers. You follow me? I'm telling you a lot of different ways. So the labels are the packaging. The visitors are the buyers. The contents are the mixtures enough, the spiritually active disguise the fraud. Enough for attendance, enough for tithing, enough for scripture quotation, the feast of observance. So they mix it with corn syrup of the flesh. The adultery, the fornication, the self-will, the secret life, the selective obedience. So when you're looking at the jar says pure on the outside. But Jehovah is not a buyer. He's not the buyer. Jehovah is the beekeeper. See, that's the difference. He's the beekeeper. So he made the original honey. He knows the consistency. He knows the color. He knows the crystallization. He knows the pattern. He knows the enzyme activity. He knows the pollen trace. He knows every drop of genuine surrender. He knows this. Why? He's a beekeeper. So when he's the inspector and when he arrives, he do not taste the labels. He tests the contents against the original. Every particle of corn syrup is identified. Every dilution is measured. The judgment is not mixed, but adulterated. So the fountain do not send forth the same sweet water for bitter. Same thing, actually, you see this in James chapter 3 and 11. See the same thing. I'm saying the same thing. It say, do the fountain send it forth the same place of sweet water for bitter? Do it? No, it don't. So the parable opens up with this jar's sensation. That's why I'm saying that. So each jar contains the opposite of its labels in the spiritual examination of the storehouse. So into the jar that label faithfulness, the servant has poured in their adultery. So if you check the spiritual dictionary, it's going to declare what faithfulness actually means. It means loyalty, devoted, and all these things. But you see, when you look in there, it's fornication inside the jar. Fornication, or forbidden practices, adultery, lewdness, all this stuff is there. Spiritual fornication. These jars are labeled with loyalty. They label with loyalty, and they fill with infidelity. It was labeled with devotion. It's filled with lewdness. It was labeled with steadfastness. It was filled with forbidden practices. The carnal world. The carnal world. See, you have the husband who ascribes to this ring I thee wed upon the band of gold, and removes the ring and travels to another city, which the label and says faithfulness, the finger, which is the vessel, says adultery. You follow me? So the wife who knows not, it looks like the visitor who marveled at the storehouse, her ring says, surely this man is faithful. You follow me? They look at that. Surely this man is faithful. But Jehovah is not the wife. Jehovah is the private investigator who had the receipts, the logs, the hotel records, the photographs. Nothing is covered. Actually, let me show you this. Let me show you. As I'm talking, I'm just going to bring you what I'm talking about. And we'll see this in Matthew 10:26. We're going to go to 10:26, just see what I'm talking about. It says, fear them not, therefore, for there is nothing covered, nothing, that shall not be revealed, and hid that shall not be known. Nothing. But people thinking they're going to hide things, and nothing is going to be concealed. In Sirach chapter 16, looking at 16 verse 17, it's real clear. And it says, say thou not, I will hide myself from the Lord. Don't come bring that lie up. Don't even think you can do it. Shall any remember me from above? Shall I not be remembered among so many people? Because many people think they can hide, they can be the pin in the haystack. Shall not I be remembered among so many people? For what my soul among such an infinite number of creatures? But he's going to find you out. So when you're looking at this jar labeled purity, the servants poured in this dark water lasciviousness. In the jar that's labeled obedience, they place ashes of selectivity. So if you even check, then you look at this spiritual dictionary, you go through it, many people have messed themselves up even going through that. By doing it incorrectly. See, the carnal world, we look at these employees. Employees with dress codes. See, when they arrive on time, they attend every meeting, signs every attendance sheet. You have people like this. You have these employees. Follow the dress code to the letter. Always on time. Attends every meeting. They're going to sign every attendance sheet. You know they was there. But they embezzle the money from the companies every month on their account. His compliance record is outstanding, excellent, outstanding. His personal file is clean. His manager gives him accommodation for attendance. But the auditor, the inspector of the auditor of the storehouse, he don't look at the attendance sheet. He's not looking at that. The auditor is going to open the financial records. The embezzlement declares itself. So the commendation becomes evidence of the concealment rather than the evidence of his character. Selective obedience is spiritual embezzlement. Spiritual embezzlement. The same man that keeps the Sabbath outwardly, this is like the compliance record of attendance sheet, the visible obedience, but violates his heart in planning his next week's transaction while the law is being read. This is the embezzlement hidden from Jehovah's treasury. See, actually, let me show it to you. I'm going to show you what I'm talking about, because it's right there. They're showing you why you're fleshly when people doing this. Exodus 20:15. Thou shalt not steal. That's all you need. Thou shalt not steal. Don't rob. Don't deceive. Jehovah full commandment in presenting the partial commandment as a whole. So when you see even the jars that's labeled generosity, they pour calculations into there. The jar that they're labeled humility, they're pouring into their oil of self-promotion. See, these are the dark speeches in the spiritual dictionary, even when you know what oil means of anointing, these consecrations. But then in the parable there was spoke that the oil and the oil of Jehovah, the anointing, self-promotion, while still counterfeiting anointing. Have you ever seen this counterfeit anointing? Yeah, tell you something, which you can also see in the world. See, the carnal world, they have a practice. Most people don't heard it. But they just never heard it the way I'm gonna say it. But it's actually a real thing. They call it viral marketing. Viral marketing. Many people might have heard the word viral, but never heard viral marketing. But there is a such thing. This is where companies, they don't advertise its products directly, but they'll pay individuals, these influencers, to use their product in public. They get you to buy it. They speak of the product in a casual conversation. Oh yeah, I use this, and as they talking, as they doing this, they might got a couple of million followers. Get you to buy into it. So they can say it in casual conversation. They post the images themselves, the product, on their social media channels, so that the advertising look like a genuine enthusiasm rather than a purchase promotion. The audience believes the individual is sincere because the individual did not say, I was paid for this. They don't say, I was paid for this. They don't say that. So the jar says humility. The contents is paid for promotions in itself. I'm shocked I even have to go through this. Let's look at something. It says in Matthew chapter 6:16, it says, moreover, when you feast, be not as the hypocrites of a sad countenance, for they disfigure their faces, that they may appear unto men to fast. Verily I say unto you, they have their reward. But thou, when thou fast, anoint thy head and wash thy face, that thou appear not unto men to fast, but unto the Father, which is in secret. And the Father which seeth in secret, reward thee openly. Exactly the point. See, the influence who is paid to hold the product, and then I'm going to ask all the things all the time. I'm going to ask many times. Most people just sit there like, man, I could show you floods of emails I get. They ask me to put a product on here to market it for them. They sit there and say, hey, before I go on, I use such and such product. But you don't see me do that. There's no reason to. Because I don't use it. So I don't need to get influencer money to lie to you to sell their products. Because I don't use them. The products I do use, when people hear me talk about Apple, I use Apple. You see me, I'm buying Apple everything. I don't have no stock in them. Nothing. I just like the product because their products are solid. So I speak of them. And that's what I do. I don't sit there and say, go buy this, go buy. I don't say none of that. But one thing I do know, they make solid products and they like to make sure the quality parts that they have in there are solid. So you get longevity out of them. So I hype them up. I can't say that for other products because I didn't use other computer systems. I didn't use many other ones. And they don't have that kind of backing. So that's what I look at when I do that. But you don't hear me in the thing saying, hey, go buy it. No, that's stupidity. So the same thing is we look at this in Matthew 6 and verse 2, thinking about that. It says, therefore not doeth thy arm. So when you do get these, don't sound the trumpet before thee as the hypocrites do in the synagogues and in the streets, that they may have glory of men. Therefore, say unto you, they have their reward. Yeah, they have their reward. Self-promotion. Closed circuit. Energy goes out and returns to the sender. So same thing when you got these jars that's labeled patience. They pour vinegar of resentment in them. Think about that. Resentment. You know, you sit there and see this. So you left with an open air of the world, but it don't remain in there as wine. So the same thing, the oxygen, it converts to uric acid. So then the acid is vinegar. The vinegar cannot be converted back to wine. So resentment is faith. Left open to the air, especially of this world, the spouse that says, I forgive you, I want you to understand me real clearly. The spouse that says, I forgive you, but stores the offense as ammunition for the next argument, have opened the wine of faith and left it exposed to the oxygen of bitterness, and faith becomes vinegar, and then the vinegar was poured into the jar and labeled, and they labeled it patience. And when the visitors tasted it, they'll flinch, but say nothing, because the label was the authority, and the flinching was the mistaken of the conviction. People sitting there like, man, dude, I don't get that. You'll get it. Think about what I said. I promise you'll get it. See, this is the issue with a lot of things, of what I'm talking about. Even in 1 Corinthians 13:5, it says, do not behave itself unseemly. Seek not her own, is not easily provoked. Thinketh no evil. See, it keep no accounts. See, true long suffering don't keep accounts. Not trying to store something up for the next ammunition. Not trying to keep records. Not trying to keep ledgers of grievances. See, you don't file offenses in the cabinet of your mind for future use. You don't do these things. Because when people do those things, those are not followers of Christ. They just religious. In Sirach chapter 28, looking at 1 and 2, it says, he that revenges shall find vengeance from the Lord. Yeah. So the one who stores that kind of stuff up, don't worry, you're gonna get yours. Who store that kind of stuff up. And he will surely keep his sins in remembrance. You see that? And he will surely keep his sins in remembrance. So you the ones who's doing that, he gonna make sure he remembers that. So when you come before him, he can do you in. Verse 2, it says, forgive thy neighbor in the hurt that he has done unto thee, so shall thy sin also be forgiven when thou prayest. So when you look at these jarred labels of wisdom poured into this wingworm of human opinion, you got to remember this. All this you have to remember. James chapter 3, looking at verse, actually we look at verse 3, 15 to 17. And it says, this wisdom descended not from above, but is earthly, sensual, devilish. Yeah. Holds this, I'm going to hold this, I'm going to remember this so I can do this. For they were envying and strife, and there is confusion in every evil work. But the wisdom that is from above is first pure, then peaceable, gentle, and easily entreated, full of mercy, good fruits, without partiality, and without hypocrisy. This is what we deal with. This is what we got to look at. The jar label of wisdom contains the wisdom that's beneath earthly, sensual, devilish, dressed as the language in the wisdom that's from above is pure, peaceable, and gentle. So the carnal world, this is the difference between the license of a licensed physician and a man who had purchased the white coat, a stethoscope, a nameplate with a custom shop. Both wear coats though. Both carries the instruments. Both display nameplates. But one who has studied medicine for decades knows the difference between the beginning condition and the malignant one. The one who purchased the costume will disguise everything as either you're fine or take a pill for this. Hey, no, you take a pill for that. Because they have no depth of understanding behind the appearance of authority. So this wormwood human, in their opinion, is a costume of wisdom. Even the ones you see, God wants you happy. That's a costume of wisdom. God wants you happy. When God said, I desire mercy, not sacrifice. Actually, he said, I'm going to show you where he said this at. We'll see this in Hosea 6:6. No, it's right there. Yeah, I desire mercy and not sacrifice, and the knowledge of God more than burnt offerings. So you see, the world will always tell you, and I done heard it many times growing up, follow your heart. A lot of people done heard that. Follow your heart. It's an interesting statement. And that's what the world going to tell you. Follow your heart. Follow it. So you follow it, and it's telling you right here in in Jeremiah chapter 17, verse 9, it tells you the heart is deceitful above all things and desperately wicked. Who can know it? The Lord. The Lord. So it's always going to come back, no matter what. No matter what. It's going to always come back to one thing. Exodus 23:15. Thou shalt keep the feast of unleavened bread, and thou shalt eat unleavened bread 7 days as I command thee in thy appointed time in the month of Abib, and thou canst come out of Egypt, and none shall appear before me empty. Not one. Not one. This is why we have a bigger problem. This is where the bigger problem is. In Isaiah chapter 5, we're looking at verse 20, it says, woe unto them that call good evil, they call evil good and good evil. Put darkness for light and light for darkness. For bitter for sweet and sweet for bitter. Woe unto them that are wise in their own eyes and prudent in their own sight. Exactly the point. This couldn't have been said any better. Because that great jar of surrender remained entirely empty. That's the center of the parable, the weight of the entire teaching, the pivotal point, points to which the judgment turns. The surrender of the jar is never empty. Did you know that? The surrender jar was never empty. It was a covenant vessel that declares the terms. Actually, I'm going to show it to you. We're going to see this in Deuteronomy chapter 19 in verse 21. And it says, "And the eye should not pity, but life should go for a life." Exactly the point. Exactly what the point was. A life should go for the life. So Jehovah did the first thing. He placed his own life inside that jar. So the servants ever received it, surrender jar, operate only a life for life transaction. That's how that works. When you go there and you go to that jar of surrender, you have to trade a life for a life. Jehovah placed his life within it, set it upon the highest shelf, saying, "If thou wilt pour out thy life for flesh into this vessel, my life should come forth as a ransom." That's the redemption, that's the substitution. That goes right back over here to Mark 10:45. And we look at 10:45. It says, "Even the Son of Man, who came not to be ministered, but to minister, and to give ransom for many." Exactly. See, Abraham made that exchange. He made the exchange. He left his country, did he not? You see it here in Genesis 12:1. You see it there. It says, "Now the Lord said unto Abram, Get thee out of that country, from thy father's kindred, and from thy father's house, and I will show thee a land." So he left his country, his kindred, his father's house. Abraham poured his entire life of flesh and surrendered it in that jar. He did that. We had James 2:23. It says the scripture was fulfilled and said, Abraham believed God and it was imputed to him for righteousness. And he was called a friend of God. So where's the issue at? That's why that surrender jar stays empty. It's not empty. But if you're going to get the contents, you got to take his life out of there and you got to put your life in the jar. This is where the issue is. This is why a lot of people can't do this. In John chapter 15, verse 13, it tells you, what greater love have a man, this a male or female, than this? That a man lay down his life for his friends. How many people did this? How many people do that? How many people would lay down their life for their friend? Actually, we witnessed this a couple of weeks ago. Yeah, I took him down. I had to restore him. But he was taken down on something that was said that he did. And I took him down. I had to restore him. And what he did is this right here. What greater love have no man than this, to lay down his life for his friend. He laid down his life. Because some of the elders wanted to talk to him about it. They even told him, man, you need to tell the elders, he said, no, man, just let it go. Just let it go. He said this out of his own mouth to them. He didn't tell me, he told them that. I know 2 elders he told. He told them this up front. He said, no, man, just let it go. He was dead here. I buried him. I had him 45 foot up under the grave. And we had all the brothers at his funeral. And I did the eulogy. I had to resurrect that brother. I had to resurrect that brother. Because he laid down his life and left it alone. But it was one that didn't. It was one that lied. What had happened was, that angered me. Why? Because they made me shoot a brother I love. And that shouldn't have happened. What had happened was, when I went back and looked at the text, I said it. Dude, you knew you said it. You made me shoot a young brother for nothing. He forgave me for it. We good. But I'm highly pissed. And I have a righteous anger behind this. Because even things were said where things were spoken. I don't care to hear. But one thing about it is, that brother, that's a brother. He laid down his life, and he was willing to leave it there. Those elders came and called us. No, man, that wasn't him, man. That wasn't him. The culprit sitting there saying what had happened was. That's a low-down, dirty dog. That's what I see. Nothing different. So we have to look at that for what it is. We have to see it for what it is. See, that surrender jar cannot contain two lives. It can't contain it. You can't contain the life of flesh and the life of Jehovah in the same jar. The God is still the God to go. See, the servant must keep the jar empty. Not just negligent of it, but refuse to exchange it, but stood before the highest shelf in the very ransom that he can deliver, untouched, because they had not traded the life of flesh for the life of the Father. They didn't do it. So now when the inspector comes, and the vision of his coming is declared, and as we see, I want to show you something. Revelation chapter 1, looking at verse 14, it tells you this. It says, "In the head was white hairs and white as wool, as white snow, and his eyes were as flames of fire." I want you to hear this under the spiritual language of vision. Every word that functions of Jehovah, the authority over the storehouse. So when we're looking at this, even in the spiritual dictionary, it declares that the head means the captain, the ruler, the guide. It's not merely Jehovah's appearance, but his governmental position over every jar. Comes as a ruler of the house, the captain over every vessel. So his hairs, his doctrine. The two doctrines are the laws of the prophets and the commandments. Let me show you this, what I'm talking about. In Isaiah chapter 8 and verse 20. See, the law and to the testimony, if they speak not according to this word, it's because there is no light in them. The law and the testimony, if they speak not according to this word, it's because there is no light in them. His hairs was white. Spiritual dictionary is going to always declare the white as anointed, glorified, distinguished. But hair white like wool. It always going to declare the wool meaning the covering, the offering, the blessing. But his doctrine itself offering the covering, the white as wool, white as snow. Daniel even confirmed that when you're looking at Daniel chapter 7, verse 9. We see it there. I beheld till the throne was cast down, and the Ancient of Days sat, whose garment was white as snow, and his hairs was white as wool, was white like pure wool. His throne was like fiery flame, and his wheels as burning fire. See, when the Ancient of Days, whose garment was white as snow, his hairs was a pure wool. You got to understand what he's talking about, what he's claiming. what we are doing, what we're here to do. Let's look at something. In 1 Samuel chapter 16, verse 7, as he said, the Lord said unto Samuel, look not on the countenance or the height of the stature. This is of any man. Any man. Don't look at that. Because I have refused him. For the Lord seeth not as man seeth. For the Lord looketh on the outward. For the man looketh on the outward appearance. The Lord looketh upon the heart. He looks upon the heart. So the vision that we got to understand, the vision of consuming zeal, the perception of sacrificial wrath, the understanding that burns on the altar, the judgment before which no label can survive and the contents can hide. That's an impossibility. So when the inspector, he comes, and the inspector is the Lord. So when the inspector comes and he opened that lid, his eyes is as a flame of consuming fire. It's going to consume the label in its entirety. And what remaineth is only the contents. That's the scary thing. That's the scary thing. And we really have to pay attention to this. Hebrews chapter 4:13, it says, neither is there any creature that is not manifest in his sight, but all things are naked and open unto the eyes of him with whom we have to do. This is the scary thing. So it comes to this great jar of surrender. He opened that lid and that jar is empty. He don't see that switch in there. The sounds of emptiness was louder than any trumpet. Now this dark speech that goes out, this carnal world, a man striketh an empty vessel, sounds resonate louder and longer, and it strikes as one full. So a jar that absorbs the blow, empty, jar amplified. Emptiness. This surrender jar produced, and it not produce silence. It produced a sound that echoes through the entirety of the storehouse. A sound that declared itself louder than any label, louder than any arrangement, louder than any praise of a visitor. The trumpet in the scriptures, the instrument of judgment proclaimed. You see those when you go in those church houses. They call them those are cemeteries. You see those cornets, those politicians, those rulers to proclaim authority, and men bow to them. Empty those surrender jars. See, and those jars became their own trumpet. They need no inspector. They pronounce judgment. This is what they do. They furnish with expensive furniture to hang curtains, silk, and all these things. And the first thing they say outside, this is a grand house. They build, and then the building inspector comes, having instruments, knocks on the door of the walls, and the hollow rings. The inspector writes upon the report, no structural integrity. The studs are missing. The situation, the insulation is absent. The wiring is not the code. The foundation have not settled. The building passed the eye, but failed the test of inspection. So when the owner said, look at the chandlers, the inspector says the chandlers did not hold up the roof. The servant labels were the chandlers. Arranging the silk curtain, the visitor praised in the eyes. So he opened the jar of faithfulness. The stench of adultery filled the room. He said, I have found the works of flesh in a vessel of honor. There's no need to open more jars. No need. Because the statute of Jehovah upon the principle of this judicial economy, the first piece of evidence was conclusive. The trial is now shortened. See, because when you look in the corner courtroom, and you can go in any corner courtroom, they all over the United States. When a man is found with stolen goods upon his own person, the prosecution need not to prove that he planned the theft, that he seized or he cased this building. He has disabled the alarm. The goods is upon the person are sufficient. The adultery in the jar is faithfulness. With stolen goods upon the servant's person. It's there. Jehovah don't need to open the jar of obedience because he find ashes of selectivity. He don't need to open the jar of generosity because he going to find calculation. He don't need to open the jar of humility. He going to find the oil of self-promotion. One jar was sufficient. One jar was sufficient. One. And I want to show it to you. In Matthew chapter 7, picking it up at 20, it says this. It's clear. It says, wherefore they are known by their fruits, you should know them. By their fruits, you should know them. And it tells you right here in Galatians chapter 5, looking at starting at verse 19. And they are manifest, which are these: adultery, fornication, lasciviousness, idolatry, witchcraft, hatred, variance, ill emotions, wrath, strife, seditions, heresies, envying, murders, drunkenness, rivalings, and such like. These things are found there. So why do we need to open more? But I want you to hear the spiritual adultery, the fornication in the building called churches. The spiritual adultery and fornication in the building they call churches. For the parable declared the deepest cut of all. The inspector shall find within the jars the congregation of idolatry, of man worship. The prophet even Ezekiel, he said this. I want to show you this because I can go to one place. In Ezekiel chapter 8, verse 14. And I want to show you something. And we'll see this here. It says, and he brought me to the door of the gate of the Lord's house, which was towards the north. And remember, there sat women weeping for Tammuz. Interesting. Verse 16, and he brought me unto the inner court of the Lord's house. And remember, at the door of the temple of the Lord, between the porch and the altar, there were 25 men with their backs towards the temple of the Lord and their faces towards the east, and they was worshiping the sun towards the east. You see how this gets? So the same spiritual fornication that we have that goes out in 2026. The fornication is committed in every building that they call the house of God. You can go to any place they call it the house of God. You see this. It teaches the doctrines and commandments of men, making the people look to men upon the stage rather than Jehovah, upon the thrones and similitudes. So the carnal world makes this plain. This is where the phenomenon, where the physician called the transferred dependence, is what they call that. Transferred dependence. This is where patients who are addicted to one substance receive treatment and breaks free from that substance, but then transferred his dependence to the person who treated them. He replaced the drug with a doctor. He replaced the addiction with an appointment. He replaced the substance with a relationship. And the doctor becomes the new drug. The patient cannot function without calling the doctor, without hearing the doctor's voice, without receiving the doctor's approval. The same with the congregation. They had transformed it dependent from the idol of the world to the idols of that preacher. Have not been healed. Have exchanged one addiction for another. The people is no longer worship the sun towards the east. They worship the man that stands upon the stage in the front. This is the main reason. You even heard Elder Jenkins say it earlier. He said it, and I know, I believe Brother Wayne, he was talking about the same thing. It's one of the main reasons you see Bibles up here. That was one of the main focus I wanted to make sure. Because this is the most important thing you need to do. Is right there. You need to see somebody who you need to idolize. idolize this Bible and the contents within it. See, the jar label surrender to Jehovah, the jar label allegiance in this denomination. You see this? You see Jehovah is labeled allegiance to a denomination. Personal, buildings made with hands. Actually, I want to show you something. We're going to look at this again. In Jeremiah 17 and verse 5, it's pretty clear. It says, "And thus saith the Lord, the Spirit of God, cursed be the man that trusteth in man and maketh flesh his arm, whose heart parteth from the Lord." Exactly the point. Because he already told you, he spoke from heaven. He didn't speak from earth. Yeah, he shows you this. He told you this. He tells you these things, and we still want to hold to some man. In Exodus chapter 20, picking it up at verse 22, we're going to get 22 and 23. And it says, "And the Lord said unto Moses, Thus thou shalt say unto the children of Israel, Ye have seen what I have taught to you from heaven. Ye shall not make with me gods of silver, neither shall ye make unto you gods of gold." With him. He spoke from heaven, not from a pulpit. He spoke from heaven, not from a pulpit, not from a platform of a building made with hands. He didn't do that. This is the issue. Followers of Christ in this 2026 year. The same as we watched the first parable. Now we need to examine our own storehouses before the inspector returns. See, it's better right now to pour the sand out of your transgressions. Pour it out before the altar of Jehovah today. This is the best time to pour it out before him, before the judgment comes tomorrow. I want to show you something real quick. We want to run this 3 here. We want to look at something. In Ezekiel 36:26, he says that, and he's so clear on it. He said, "A new heart will I give you, and a new spirit will I put within you, and I will take away the stony heart of flesh, and I will give you a heart of flesh." Remember what he said? Remember what he said? We got to remember, we got to put all this together. Because we're doing it so many different ways, which way we can't get around. It says, "Eye for an eye, the eye shall not pity, but life shall go for a life." A life shall go for a life. As we're getting near the end of it, but I want you to see something. We're going to run a second parable. Sand in the jar. I want you to see this. So all those who have ears to hear, you need to hear this.
Hear now the second parable, which is darker than the first and more complex in its similitudes. There was a woman of great reputation in a certain city, and she was known among all her neighbors as a keeper of the law and a woman of the Spirit. And her storehouse was the most beautiful in all the land, and her jars were the most numerous. Now this woman had spent 40 years in the congregation, and she had heard every sermon and attended every feast. She had read the scriptures from Genesis to Revelation, and she could quote the law and the prophets by memory. But there was a secret in her storehouse that no visitor had ever seen, for the woman had a great jar that she kept hidden behind all the other jars, and this jar was labeled surrender. But within it she had poured sand, not the sand of open rebellion, but the fine white sand of self-deception. For she had told herself that the sand was the same as the Spirit. She had convinced herself that her years of service, her attendance, her knowledge of Scripture, and her reputation were the same as surrender. And when the visitors came and asked, "Is your jar of surrender full?" she would bring it forward and show them the weight of it, and they would say, "Surely this woman has surrendered, for her jar is heavy." But the weight was sand, and sand is the similitude of the works of the flesh done in the name of the Spirit. For sand is made of many small particles, and each particle is a small act of self-will, a small compromise here, a small convenience there, a small refusal to obey the full counsel of the law. Deception, she had mixed the dark grains of her secret life, for in the night, when the visitors had departed and the storehouse was dark, the woman would open the screen of her device and pour into her eyes the filth of the world. She would watch that which Jehovah calleth an abomination, and she would satisfy the lusts of her flesh in secret, believing that the walls of her chamber concealed her from the eyes of the inspector. But the psalmist declareth, Thou hast set our iniquities before thee, our secret sins in the light of thy countenance. And Ecclesiastes 12:14 confirmeth, For God shall bring every work into judgment, with every secret thing, whether it be good or whether it be evil. And over 40 years the small particles had accumulated, and the jar was full. But it was full of sand, not of spirit. Now in the year 2026, the world came to this woman with its solutions. The counselors of the world said, You are doing well. You have served faithfully. You have given much. You deserve to rest in your accomplishments. And the philosophers of the age said, Surrender is a personal journey. Define it for yourself. Your sand is as valid as another man's spirit. And the preachers of prosperity said, God is pleased with your abundance. The weight of your jar is proof of his blessing. But these were the words of men, and not the words of Jehovah. For the Lord hath said, My thoughts are not your thoughts, neither are your ways my ways. And the wisdom of Solomon declareth, For into a malicious soul wisdom shall not enter, nor dwell in the body that is subject unto sin. And to Esdras crieth out, For in truth there is no man among them that be born, but he hath dealt wickedly. And among the faithful there is none, which hath not done amiss. Therefore the worldly solutions were vanity, and the philosophical definitions were lies, and the prosperity gospel was a snare for dynasty. The adversary of our souls hath spent thousands of years perfecting his deceptions, but they all led to the same transaction. He offereth the temporal, the visible, the fleeting, and asketh in return thy eternal connection to the Creator. The merchant of smoke hath 666 methods, but all converge upon one sale. Thy soul for the nothing is all that dynasty possesseth. Vanity of vanities, as the preacher declared, vanity of vanities, all is vanity. Anything that cannot enter the kingdom of heaven is nothing, and dynasty selleth nothing at the price of everything. Then the inspector came, and he did not come to the front of the storehouse where the beautiful jars were arranged. He went straight to the back, where the hidden jar of surrender was kept. And he took it down, and he opened the lid, and he poured it out, and the sand ran out upon the floor, and the sound of it was like the rushing of many waters. And the woman was ashamed, and she said, Lord, I have served thee faithfully. For 40 years I have attended every feast, I have given my tithes, I have quoted thy scriptures. And the inspector answered her, saying, Thou hast given me thy service, but thou hast not given me thyself. Thou hast given me the labor of thy hands, but thou hast kept back thy will. Thou hast filled thy jar with the sand of self-righteousness and called it surrender. For I desired mercy and not sacrifice, and the knowledge of God more than burnt offerings. The sacrifices of God are a broken spirit, a broken and a contrite heart. O God, thou wilt not despise. And the woman wept, for she understood at last that she had been a keeper of jars and not a keeper of the Spirit. And the inspector said unto her, If thou wilt return, then return unto me. Pour out the sand of thy self-will, and bring the empty jar to the altar, and I will fill it with my Spirit. turn again to the Most High, and turn away from iniquity, for he will lead thee out of darkness into the light of health, and hate thou abomination vehemently. And the woman fell upon her face, and she poured out the sand before the altar, and she wept over every particle of self-will that had accumulated over 40 years. And she brought the empty jar to the altar, and she laid it down, saying, Lord, I have nothing to offer thee, but this empty vessel. I have no more sand to give, I have no more labels to write. I come before thee empty. As thou hast commanded, none shall appear before thee empty of surrender. And the Lord received the empty jar, and he filled it with his Spirit, and it became a vessel of honor, sanctified and meet for the master's use. For it is written, But in a great house there are not only vessels of gold and of silver, but also of wood and of earth, and some to honor, and some to dishonor. If a man therefore purge himself from these, he shall be a vessel unto honor, sanctified and meet for the master's use, and prepared unto every good work. And this is the mystery of the second parable, that the jar must be emptied before it can be filled. The sand of self-righteousness must be poured out before the Spirit can enter. The false label must be torn away before the true name can be written. For the Lord hath promised, A new heart also will I give you, and a new spirit will I put within you. And I will take away the stony heart out of your flesh, and I will give you an heart of flesh. But the new heart cannot be given to a man who is still holding on to the old one. The new spirit cannot enter a jar that is still full of sand. Therefore, the first act of true surrender is the act of emptying, and the second act is the act of bringing the empty vessel to the altar. And the third act is the act of waiting for the Lord to fill what he has emptied, and to write his name upon what he has cleansed. For the Lord hath said, Be still, and know that I am God. And again, they that wait upon the Lord shall renew their strength. They shall mount up with wings as eagles. They shall run and not be weary, and they shall walk and not faint. Now let the followers of Christ in 2026 hear this parable and tremble, for the world is full of women and men who have spent decades filling their jars with the sand of self-righteousness and calling it surrender. The man who attends every service but refuses to forgive his brother has a jar full of sand. He has labeled it obedience, but the inspector will find the stones of bitterness within it. The woman who posts scriptures every morning but commits fornication in the night has a jar full of sand. She has labeled it purity, but the inspector will find the dark water of lasciviousness within it. The elder who preaches surrender from the pulpit but has never laid his own will upon the altar has a jar full of sand. He has labeled it surrender, but the inspector will find the ashes of ambition and pride within it. For these men have taught through the precepts of men and not of God, making the people look to a man, a figure upon a stage, as their salvation, rather than pointing them to Jehovah, who alone saveth. They have made themselves mediators between the people and the Most High, usurping the authority that belongeth to the law of Moses and the prophets. And the people, following the blind guides, have poured their devotion not into the jar of surrender unto Jehovah, but into the jar of allegiance to a denomination, a personality, a building made with hands. And when the inspector openeth that jar, he shall find within it the idol of man worship, dressed in religious garments, smelling of incense, but rotten to the core. For the Lord hath declared through the mouth of Esdras, for the world hath lost his youth, and the times begin to wax old. The time is short. The inspector is near. This is the second parable. Let him that hath understanding understand.
So hopefully you guys understood that, because we got to go deeper on this and understand what we're doing. And that's why I'm showing them to you this way, to where hopefully you guys can get it a little bit better besides me reading them to you. So the main thing is we got to understand the generation of 20 years according to the laws of Moses, showing right here. And we're going to look at this in Numbers 14:29. It says, the carcass shall fall in this wilderness, and they will all number of you, according to your whole number from 20 years and upward, which have murmured against me. From 20 years and upward, all that are able to go forth to war in Israel, meaning all can go forth towards this life, this lifestyle. Thou and Aaron and the matter shall be numbered by their armies. So this is also one of the reasons why we don't baptize people that's 20 years and under. That's why I don't do that. Because we got to make sure they're able to go fully to war. We can train them all the time from a child all the way up. But this is when they go to war. But we got to remember what it's saying and why I speak to them who know the law. Because this parable exposes a woman who deceived herself for this self-deception, who deceived and will defraud her own mouth. So even through Jeremiah, he says this in Jeremiah 17:9. He says, the heart is deceitful above all things, desperately wicked. Who can know it? God. And as he says in verse 10, I, the Lord, search the heart, and try the ruins, even give every man according to his ways, according to the fruit of his doing. This is what he does. So the same thing, he comes through this counsel is not as a philosopher, not though these preachers of prosperity look, but I want you to consider this woman, her reputation is established in the first verse. The first verse of that parable, right out the gate. She was known among all her neighbors as a keeper of the law, the woman of the Spirit. So you got to sit there and see what that's talking about. This familiar acquaintance, this person who looked at and they esteemed this person. But now knowing what this neighbors, same as you look at something. And as we go through this, we're just going to be having this conversation to where you can understand exactly where I'm coming from. In 2 Timothy chapter 2, looking at verse 19, it speaks to us about this. It says, nevertheless, the foundation of God standeth sure, having this seal, the Lord knoweth them that are his, and let everyone who name the name of Christ depart from iniquity. It's a serious statement. But is that true for everybody? 40 years. 40 years. And I'm going to put that back up there. We'll go back up there just so we have it there. That's back in Numbers 14:29. So we was in the wilderness 40 years. So 20 years is the age of accountability to the law. So which the year, the woman, the first year numbered among the congregation, the first counted in the first ceases, the census of what we're talking about. So Jehovah's army first withheld answerable and murmured of their obedience. So when we're looking at the 20 years in one generation, the full cycle of proving, is the complete measure of the accountability of the Father. So the woman who did not receive one generation of proving, she received the second. That's the second one. 20 years, 40 years. You follow me? I want you to stay with me on this. So the second 20 years is the cycle of Jehovah's patience. 2 full revolutions in measuring the wheels. The first generation was the standard of proving. Jehovah proves every soul once. Some of you guys, he expanded it out a little bit further than others. Truth came to everyone once. So he proved Abraham once in Moriah. He proved Israel at the waters of Meribah. See, the second generation was grace multiplied upon grace, mercy upon mercy, long-suffering upon long-suffering. Let me show you what I'm saying. to bring this a little bit closer, I want you to understand more so. See, because a lot of people are just going to see this as a lesson, as something like that. This is what going to cause most people to get lost and be killed. Meaning, when you come to this second one, in 2 Peter chapter 3 verse 9, it said the Lord is not slack concerning His promises, as a man counts slackness, but is long suffering. And us were not willing that ye should perish, but all should come to repentance. This is something people still not going to do. This is why you don't sit there and see me. I don't. And most times, you guys always hear me all the time. I don't blanket. Hey, brothers and sisters, you never see me blanket that ever. I do that on purpose, because I know everyone here is not my brother. I know everyone here is not my sister. So I don't blanket that, because I know we have people who's out here for bad reasons. Jehovah waited a full generation in proving the saying is not the covenant of the Spirit. He waited for another full generation to prove it. The saying is still not converted to spirit. The wisdom of Solomon, he witnessed against this in such patience. I want to show it to you. In Wisdom of Solomon, we'll see this in 15. Yeah. Wisdom of Solomon 15, 1 and 2. It says, but thou, God, art gracious and true, long-suffering and mercy, order in all things. For if we sin, we are thine, knowing thy power. But he will not sin, knowing that we are counted thine. So this woman knew this. This woman knew she was counted among Jehovah's people. She knew his power. She sinned 2 full generations. 2 full generations away. Not in the streets, but in the closet. You follow me? She didn't do this in the streets. She did this in the closet. You got to understand the oxymorons when we look at parables. See, not the rebellion, but it was self-deception. So it says at the first time, she started believing this herself. So the similitude of the natural world, the invisible things of him are clearly seen, being understood by the things that are made. That shows you right there in Romans chapter 1, verse 20. And actually, I'm just going to go to it to where we can see it. And then I can finish talking what I'm saying. But it says, for the invisible things of him are clearly seen, being understood by the things that are made, even his eternal power and his Godhead. So they are without excuse. That's why this is here. Meaning this, and I want you to hear me clearly. So with the earth, and I'm going to explain this another way. So when we look at the earth in the process, even of, they call these geologists, they call fossilized. So when you're looking at something fossilized, meaning you can have a tree that can be near a swamp. It can fall in this mineral-rich environment. The water that saturates the wood, but it don't destroy it. But it do it immediately saturated. So over time, over generations, over decades, over centuries, the minerals in the water replaces the organic cells of the wood one by one, particle by particle, until the entire tree becomes like a stone. The shape is always the same. The ring is preserved, the bark pattern remains. The man looks at it upon the fossilized tree, and he'll still say, behold, a tree. He's still going to say that. But it's not a tree. It's a rock. It's a rock. In the image of a tree, every living cell that has been replaced by a dead mineral. And replace happened so gradually, not one single moment can be identified as the moment when the tree died. The same thing with the woman's heart. Is a fossilized tree. So there's 2 full generations of proving. Same with the mineral self-will. Same problem that we're having today. Self-will, self-deception, secret compromise, mortal limitations replaced by living cells of obedience, one by one, particle by particle, until the entire heart becomes a stone in the image of the Spirit. So the shape of the surrender was preserved. The shape of the surrender was preserved. That's the point on what was happening. So when we're looking at this, we're getting a better understanding of what's happening. So as we're looking at that, the minerals of self-will, the self-deception, clear compromise, mortal limitations replace the living cells of obedience one by one, particle by particle. The entire heart becomes a stone, the image of a spirit. But the shape surrender was preserved. The ring of faithful service was visible. The pattern of the righteous woman remains upon the surface. It's going to remain there, but the living organism is dead, replaced entirely by dead minerals of sand. And the replacement happens so gradually, so gradually. The sand was made in so many small particles. It says even in the parable, the sand particles are so small act of self-will, not one single moment can identify the moment surrender actually died. That's the crazy part. Where it actually died. Let me try to bring this a little bit closer. In Ezekiel 36:26. Let's look at something. A new heart will I give to you, and a new spirit will I put within you. And I will take away the stony heart out of your flesh, and I will give you a heart of flesh. This is the crazy part. I want you to really hear me understanding what I'm saying. This is not just a promise, but it's a statute. It's a statute of exchange. It's a statute. I want everybody to put in there who understand. This is a statute of exchange. And if you understand what I'm saying, just put statute. Because Jehovah must. He's commanded. He must. He commanded himself. He must take away the stony heart. He must do this. I want you to think about that. He must take away the stony heart because the woman cannot unfossilize herself. Everybody follow me? She cannot unfossilize herself. The minerals cannot become cells again by its own will. Only the maker of the living tree can reverse the fossilization. And he will only do it when the woman brings the stone to the altar and confess that she called the tree an actual rock. That's a trip, ain't it? You have to confess you calling that an actual rock. That's most people can't do. See, the parable said the sand was not sand open rebellion, but it was fine. White sand, self-deception. The carnal world, when authorities detect counterfeit currency, I want you to think about this. When they detect counterfeit currency, and it's counterfeit, I want you to think about something. And it's counterfeit currency. They don't concern themselves with this is obvious forgeries. The printed bill upon the paper drawn on crayons, the bill with wrong face, wrong color. These deceive no one and waste no one time. The danger is what we call super note. The danger is the super note. The counterfeit is so precise, so meticulously crafted, it passes through even banks. Bank people will tell you they don't get past, but they do, at an alarming rate. Counterfeit money. It go by banks, it get by their testing processes, everything. So through banks and the counting machines, we bypass them also. Through the hands of experienced tellers without detection. They just test it, they check it, they know it's real and it's fake. See, they call these super notes. They use the same cotton blend, the same color shifting ink, the micro printed security features, as it's caught only when it reaches one place. It's only going to get caught when it reaches the Federal Reserve. That's the only place to detect it. The Federal Reserve. This is where the machines read the depth that no human eye can match, where the original standards is held under the vault and seal there. The white sand is self-deception, the supernote of the storehouse. So when we look at this, when you even look at the spiritual dictionary, that dust, the substance of sand, then this means mortality or morality, limitations of humility. So the white sand, the sand passes through the banks of the congregation, passes through the counting machines and the visitors, passes through the hands of the experienced tellers, the deacons, the elders, the leadership team, the scriptures, the study groups, without detection. But when it reaches the Federal Reserve of heaven, Jehovah, he's the maker of the original standard of surrender. He holds the vote, the seal, the ark of his covenant. So the machine is his inspection. He reads the depth so the human eye can match. No human eye can match his. So the mortality dressed in pureness, sand disguised as spirit, mortal limitations arranged in image's cleanness. For Jehovah declared unto Samuel, again, I'm going to take you back to it again, because I told you where he looks. And this is 1 Samuel 16:7. We looked at this earlier. He says, look not on the countenance or on the height of his stature, because I refused him. I already seen he was a fake. For the Lord looketh not, says not as man said. We don't look for those detection obvious. For the Lord looketh upon the, so for the man looketh on the outward appearance, but the Lord looks upon the heart. So the parable, the doors are open at night. Think about this. The doors are open at night. When the doorway, the hearer wishes to speak and to walk past. But the law requires that we enter. So for when the night comes, the visitor, he departed the storehouse was dark. The woman will open the screen of her device and pour into her eyes the filth of the world. That's what she was doing, what you seen her doing. That's why we were seeing that when we were looking at the prayer in Matthew 6:6. But when our prayers enter into that closet, I want to show you that. Because I want to show you the counter side of that. In Matthew 6:6. It says, when thy prayers enter into thy closet, and when thou has I shut thy door, pray unto the Father that which is secret, and the Father will see it, and in the secret will reward thee openly. Exactly the point. But I want you to mark this with precision of Jehovah's law. I want you to mark this with precision. See, he designed the closet, the secret place, the inner man. Not some closet you go in. That's letting you know they don't understand it. They even got a movie, I think they call it the War Room, showing you they got everything wrong. Talking about they go in the house, they feel something. Yeah, they feel Satan in there. So the one purpose, the purpose of communion is the Father's secret. But the promise of a specific reward. So he says, the Father who seeth in secret shall reward thee openly. The closet place was Jehovah's earth. The secret place, which he revealed in public, was the inner man. The inner man, he reward openly. Because you got to remember a couple of things. And you'll see this here as we get into this. For there is no respecter of person with God. I want you to keep that in mind. So when you're looking at a closet, in the place where Jehovah observes the secret, what reveals in public. He rewards openly. Whether it be prayers, whether it be fornication, whether it be principle, run both directions. Doesn't matter. If you're sitting there and you're doing all these shady things, you're going to be rewarded openly. The principle runs both directions. There's no respecter of persons. So if thou prayest in secret, he shall reward thee openly the proofs of that prayer. So if you commit fornication in secret, The spiritual dictionary, fornication means these forbidden practices: adultery, lewdness, infidelity, spiritual fornication, fornication. That's what he's talking about. He's going to reward you openly with the fruit of your fornication. You thinking you're getting away with it right now, but he's going to reward you openly with that fornication. He's not a respecter of persons. He's not a respecter of the deacons. He's not a respecter of evangelists. He's not a respecter of elders. He's not a respecter of pastors. If we committing such acts, he's going to reward us openly. See, the woman who thought she was hiding, but the closet was never designed for hiding. It was designed for revealing. The screen in the night is the instrument by which the woman convert Jehovah's revealing place into Destiny's hiding place. You follow me? It's oxymoron. So I want you to consider the similitude. The natural world, waters always seek the lowest point. You got to remember that in the natural world, it always going to seek the lowest point. You cannot pour water into a hillside and command it to remain and submit. It's going to always flow downward. The law of gravity until it finds the lowest depression. And there where the pool settles and be stagnant. So the eyes of the hillside, we got to understand what that's talking about and what it's doing. Whenever you pour until it flows them downward, the law of spiritual gravity, until it reaches the lowest point, depression of the heart. And then the pool will settle and it stagnates. I want to show you something. Actually, that's running up something. We're going to go right back to Matthew chapter 6. We're going to drop down to verse 22. Actually, it takes you right where I want to go. And it says, for the light of the body is the eye, is the understanding. If therefore, for that reason, the eye, the understanding, be single, thy whole body should be full of light. Exactly the point. But, however, if thy eye, if thy understanding be evil, the whole body shall be full of darkness. If therefore, providing that reason, the light that is in thee be darkness, how great is that darkness? How great is it? It's unreal. It's unreal. I'm saying that to say this. The screen is poured. The eyes of the hillside. The heart is the lowest depression part. So if the darkness was poured into the screen flowed through the eyes and pulled the water into the heart. Then the heart is talking about your will, your desires, your reasoning, your transformation. It becomes a reservoir of Jehovah, what he calls an abomination. That's what he's doing. Meaning this. This is why it's so dangerous of what I'm talking about. In James, looking at James chapter 3, looking at verse 11, we pull this a little bit more. And it says, doeth the fountain send forth at the same place sweet water for bitter? If we just looked at that. You see what I'm saying? The same thing you sit there and see with Sirach 13, 17. Same thing. What fellowship have a wolf with a lamb? So a sinner with the godly. That's what I was talking about. That's why I was telling you that earlier. Why would I want to hang with someone or have long conversations over the phone with someone and I know that's in them? I know it's in them. He showed me this. You guys follow what I'm saying? This is the difference. This is what's happening. It makes no sense. What fellowship do the wolf with the lamb or the sinner with the godly? It makes absolutely no sense. No bit of sense whatsoever. But now destinies enter the parable, and this is always entered. So it's not as a villain the man expect, but the solution that man's desire. So the parable declares the counselor said. So it says, are you doing well? The philosopher says, define surrender for yourself. Define surrender. So the prosperity preacher says, weigh for your jar is proof of your blessing. So when you're looking at the weight of that jar, so that's why you fill it up with sand, it's the weight of your blessing. These three voices are the three heads of destiny. These are destiny methods. They correspond with the three temptations that even Yahushua or Jesus dealt with in the wilderness. Actually, I'll show it to you. Show you what I'm talking about. And we go to Matthew 4. You start at 4:3. And it says, and the tempter came to him and said, if thou be the Son of God, command these stones to be made bread. You see how he's doing this? You see, this is what the counselor said. You see what's going on here. I want you to look at another part. We're going to go down to 4:6. We're going to go down to 4:6. And he said unto him, if thou be the Son of God, cast thyself down, for it is written, God shall give thee angels charge concerning thee, and in their hand they shall bear thee up, lest at any time thou dash thy foot against the stone. What do you think about that? You see another one in verse 9. He said unto him, all these things will I give thee, if thou wilt fall down and worship me. You see how this is going? All these things is happening. And you know, Yahushua, Jesus, he answered him every time with the same identical weapon. I'm going to show them to you. He answered and said, it is written. Boom. It is written. In verse 7, Yahushua said, it is written again. Boom. Verse 10, Jesus said unto him, get thee hence, for it is written. You see how he's doing that? It is written. It's not felt. As people look for feel-good messages, it's not felt. It's not defined by personal journeys. It's not proved by the weight of my jar. See, the smoke declares, and it really means illusions. You can look in your spiritual dictionary, it says it right there. Illusions. And when you're looking at that, it has a lot tied to that. Emptiness, pride, idolatry, vanity. So destiny is the merchant of smoke. He's a merchant of smoke. Illusions of temporality. The only currency he accepts is one thing, the currency of the soul. He has 666 methods, and within those he has 666 ways. And he keeps going down deeper and deeper. 666 oppositions, layered upon oppositions, layered upon oppositions, an architecture of imperfection built 3 stories high. Every floor leading to the same room. Can you make that make sense? But he's capable of doing that. 3 levels, and every floor going to take you to the same identical room. How? Satan does that. See, we got to remember the nothing. We spoke about that for a couple of months ago, I believe. The nothing is all that destiny possesses. He have no kingdom. Why? Because the Lord said this. I'm going to show it to you. In Psalms 24, in verse 1, it says, the earth is the Lord's, and the fullness thereof, the world, and they that dwell therein. So everything belonged to God. You see, he made the claim here. You see it here in John 8:44. Same thing. And he tells this, and he makes this clear. Ye are your father the devil, and the lust of your father you will do. He was a murderer from the beginning and abode not in the truth, because there is no truth in him. When he speaketh, he speaketh a lie. He speaketh of his own. For he is a liar, and he's the father of it. He's the father of it. There's no truth in him. He possesses only smoke only. Vanity of vanities, he sells you a piece of something for nothing. He sells it for a price of everything for your soul. He's a similitude of the carnal world. Sells you a bottle of air. That's what he does. Have you looked up on the level of an empty bottle? Have anyone ever seen they place a label on an empty bottle and say mountain breeze or ocean mist or forest calm? They change it for real money of it. The buyer opens the bottle and breathes in. There is nothing inside what was already inside. The man had paid the price for something for the possession of nothing. Destiny is the bottler. He's the bottler of air. Every bottle he sells is labeled with something beautiful. Counseling, philosophy, prosperity, self-definition, personal journey, spiritual, but not religious. Interesting, ain't it? He's good at what he does. He's good at what he does. You look at Ecclesiastes 1:14, it says, for I have seen all the works that are done under the sun, and remember, all is vanity and vexation of spirit, all of it, every bit of it. So when the inspector comes, he did not come in the front door of the storehouse where the beautiful jars are arranged. He don't go that way. He goes straight to the back where the hidden jars of surrender is kept in that courtroom. When the prosecution builds a case, they do not begin with the evidence that the defense inspects he going to do it. The skilled prosecutor going to always bypass the front door entirely. He going to enter through the records room, through the financial statements, through the metadata of the phone, through the deleted text messages, through the defiant belief that were erased. That's what he does. The sound of sand is running upon the floor like a rushing of many waters. This is what we deal with on a daily basis. So, the parable declares this mystery. The mystery of that jar. And the same as we started with from a while back. Leviticus chapter 1, verse 3. If his offering be of a burnt sacrifice, let him offer a male without blemish, without condition. He should offer his own voluntary will at the door of the tabernacle of the congregation before the Lord. Interesting, ain't it? But are we willing to do that? See, because the hardest thing is what we started with in Deuteronomy 19:21. The hardest thing we started with. A life should go for a life. A life should go for a life. Are we willing to do that? Are we willing to do this? See, we got to understand, he's not going to be pressed by the front door. He's not going to count the jars. He's not going to read our labels at all. something he's not going to do. This is the spirit is heavy. He's going to go up to your back door, and he's going to open the lid. He's going to see what's in your jar. He's going to see if you change your life for his. And if you didn't, it's a life for a life. So that's why I say everyone's not going to make it, because I already know a lot of us don't do that. So hopefully you guys got some understanding from this as we continually move forward. Understanding what's going on. So what we getting ready to do, we going to go into Zoom. We have some updates on the Passover. And we also have a presentation that we're going to hear from my advanced kids. But you'll see the link to the Zoom. Everyone's welcome. So as we prepare to go in there, everybody's welcome. So I'll be sitting there. I'll be looking forward to seeing each and every person there. So I say until next time, but on tomorrow we will be having a Bible therapy with Brother Ransom. So until we meet again, I say to each and every person, until then, I say to you, Shalom.
Empty the jar. Hear now this dark speech. Let the wise take heed of a woman with a storehouse full of what men praised indeed. 40 years among the people, 40 years within the gate, hearing every word of doctrine, thinking she had entered straight. She had jars in every corner, bright and polished in the light. Every label spoke of holiness, every vessel looked upright. But behind the rows of beauty, hidden far from every eye, stood a jar marked surrender with a secret built on lies. It was not the sand of open war, nor the sand of shouting sin, but the quiet dust of self-deception settling deep within. And every grain was self-will, every grain a hidden part, till the jar grew full and heavy, but empty at the heart. Empty the jar. Pour out the sand, bring what is broken with trembling hands. Empty the jar. Let falsehood fall, for the Lord is not asking for labels at all. He is waiting at the altar. He is searching who thou art. Empty the jar of self-righteousness and let him fill the heart. When the visitors came near her, they would ask in solemn tone, is thy jar of surrender full? Hast thou truly been his own? Then she brought it from the shadows, and they marveled at the weight. Surely this one has surrendered, surely she is consecrate. But the weight was only sand dust, gathered slowly through the years. Small refusals, small indulgences, small conveniences and fears. And by night when none were watching, she gave place unto a shame, thinking secret walls could hide her while she played a hidden game. And she thought the chamber hid her, and she thought the walls were strong. But the Lord who sees secret things had known it all along. Every grain had made a mountain, every compromise a scar, and 40 years of hidden self lay sleeping in the jar. Empty the jar. Pour out the sand, bring what is broken with trembling hands. Empty the jar. Let falsehood fall, for the Lord is not asking for labels at all. He is waiting at the altar. He is searching who thou art. jar of self-righteousness and let him fill the heart. Then the inspector came in silence, not where men would first admire, not the front of polished vessels, but the place behind the fire. He took down the hidden jar and he opened it alone, and the sand came pouring out with a heavy grieving sound. She cried, Lord, I serve thee alone. I kept the feasts, I knew the word. But he answered, thou hast given labor, yet thyself thou hast withheld. Then she fell before the altar, and she wept for every grain, every act of hidden self, well, every year of pain and name. She said, Lord, I have no offering, but this vessel empty clean. I have nothing left to write now, no more image to be seen. Then the Lord received the jar there, and he filled it with his breath, made it meet for holy service, raised it out from living death. For the vessel must be emptied if the Spirit enter in, and the old heart must be broken if the new heart shall begin. Empty the jar, empty the jar, pour out the same. Bring what is broken with trembling hands. Empty the jar, let falsehood fall, for the Lord is not asking for labels at all. He is searching who thou art. Empty the jar of self-righteousness and let him fill the heart. Empty the jar. Be still and wait, for the Lord can cleanse and recreate. He will write his name where truth may start. Empty the jar and let him fill the heart. Blessed is the soul that bringeth emptiness to start, for the Lord can fill the vessel that is empty at the heart.